Hey guys, it's Sunmin here, and welcome back to Your Money Game. Now, we've all kind of made mistakes when it comes to money. The important thing usually is that if you learn a little bit of something, at least you walked away with a paid lesson, if you will. But you know what? I think it's easier if you learn from lessons from others rather than you make them yourself. So I'm here today to share with you some of the more expensive mistakes that I made in my 20s. Now, before I get into the actual lessons itself, I'd like to give you a bit of background as to how I grew up and what money was like in my household. Now, I grew up in a typical middle-class Malaysian family, and the key lessons that were taught to me were pretty much two things. One, don't spend so much money. Two, save more money. So those were fairly basic foundations, but nevertheless pretty important. But I think if you fast forward from that, from a very young age with the key lessons, and all the way up to the point where I was in college, there wasn't anything new or anything more nuanced that was taught to me. So in college at that point in time, one of the books that was being passed around was called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm not sure if it was a generational thing, but it seemed like so many of my friends were reading it. And Rich Dad, Poor Dad became this, the new gateway into understanding money. And beyond just spending and saving, I think it helped me kind of see a whole new way of looking at these two concepts called assets and liabilities. Now, very simply, assets to me at that time was just what increases in value, whereas a liability is what continues to take away value from you. So my first big expensive lesson is paying premium for a guru first. Now, in all my excitement in wanting to be a successful investor, I found two gurus very quickly. The first was a property guru who, again, through attending her special seminar, would teach me to become a property millionaire. And the second guru was a guy that was teaching us how to be an options trader. Now, all these concepts were new to me, but he made it seem like, yeah, you can do it, it's easy enough, and I've got this perfect little box that if you follow all these single steps, you're going to become, again, a really successful trader, live on a boat and sail around the world. And all those things were really appealing to a young and again, very ambitious investor at that point in time. Now, the reason why I think it's a mistake for us to kind of go to a guru as the first port of call is a couple of things. First of all, you can find a lot of this information online. If you believe it or not, there are podcasts out there that are dedicated to it. There are YouTube channels, there are blog posts. There are so many different resources out there that kind of have the information. If you just kind of add a little bit of effort and go and look for it, I'm very sure you'll find those essentials. Secondly, these guys are presenting their solutions as the way, or at least their way. Again, nothing wrong with that, but if you are shopping for the perfect way to make money, the first thing you've got to realize is that there isn't one. Yes, there are foundations that they have which work for them, but what worked for them might not necessarily work for you. So, which is why I keep going back to you playing your own money game and being able to find a method that really works for you and your personality. So the total cost for that first expensive lesson, it's about 7,000 plus ringgits. So the next expensive lesson of my 20s is that I let fear get in the way of me investing. So remember that guru I talked about? So I did finally end up taking action to try and buy property. And I remember being very excited, going to the showroom, looking at the unit, and in my head I kind of got carried away and was so enthusiastic about it that on the spot I put down a down payment of 1,000 ringgit. So what happened was that when I got home, when my emotions calmed down a little bit, I started kind of doing the numbers again. And what I realized at that point in time was that, oh no, I was going to make a huge mistake. So I burned the 1,000 ringgit deposit and I didn't go through with it. So the reason why I think it's a huge lesson is that I clearly let my emotions get in the way of things. So the cost of this lesson to me was about 200,000 plus ringgits in property price appreciation and the 1,000 ringgit plus that I burned. But the lesson really was that, look, if you feel a lot of emotion, whether it's fear or whether it's greed, it's important to calm down and get as much perspective as possible and be objective in making these kind of decisions. My third big expensive lesson of my 20s isn't just money, but time. Remember that trading guru? So what happened was that I was really revved up. I got his method. I was trying things out. But what eventually ended up happening was that I don't remember if I was able to comply with all of the 15, 13 or whatever number of rules that he had, but I didn't manage to make it work. So what I remember distinctly was that at one point in time, and this was me shifting from options to trading futures, is that the trade was going against me and I just could not focus at work. So in a way, I was kind of risking my own job and my progression in my career. So that was a huge wake-up call for me to kind of stop trading. The cost of this lesson in terms of losses in trading and in trying and failing was probably like 20 over 1,000 ringgit, maybe 30. But I think one of the biggest thing was that it was time. And close to 8 years, maybe more, of me having trial and error, and all that time, I guess I wasn't listening to what I was going through, and it took a bad incident to, I guess, snap me out of it. So the lesson here is really for you to try and listen hard enough to your own self. How are you reacting emotionally, and are you working with a method that fits who you are as a person? So the final lesson I want to share with you guys isn't a cost of money, but a lesson that nearly cost me my own humanity. So what happened was I was on a trip with my friends in Vietnam, and we were at a beach, and what was happening was that we were cycling around, so we had to park our bikes somewhere. And this lady, she had a little corner of the beach where she, for some weird reason, that became the parking lot. What she was doing was charging people money to park the bikes. So I can't really remember what exactly happened, but I do remember feeling that she was trying to rip us off. And I think it was such a small amount. Instead of charging us like $1, she wanted to charge us like $1.50 or $2. So I remember getting into an argument with my friend who was saying that let's just put our bikes there, and why do you care so much? And I just remember being so angry about getting ripped off, even though it was a small amount. Then my friend looked at me and he said, "Hey man, she needs it more than we do." And what struck me at that point in time was like, oh my god, he's right. And all that frustration I was feeling suddenly just flipped itself into guilt. And he was absolutely right. We were traveling there as tourists. We had the privilege to do so. And there I was, kind of like being so frustrated and caught up in getting ripped off for $1. So the lesson is that even with good intentions and good principles like being frugal, you can take it to extremes, and we shouldn't let money become this all-encompassing thing that blinds us to humanity. And we can live with more consideration and generosity with others without losing those good money principles that we try to build. So those weren't the only money mistakes that I made in my 20s, and they are certainly far from the only mistakes that I've made in my life. There are plenty more, especially in my 30s, but perhaps that's a video for another time. So remember to take advantage of all the free resources around you. Don't just rely on a guru for the way. Don't let emotions push you to make big money decisions. Not all methods suit you. So that's why it's so important to look for your own money game. Finally, even good money principles and good intentions can be taken to an extreme. So thanks for watching, guys. If you've gotten any value out of this, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Share it with your friends who you think might be able to learn from some of these lessons. And if you've gotten any value out of it and you want to get more, please feel free to subscribe. So till then, play your own game.